The suit has, in course of time, become so complicated that no man alive knows what it means. The parties to it understand it least. But it has been observed that no two Chancery lawyers can talk about it for 5 minutes without coming to a total disagreement as to all the premises. Innumerable children have been born into the cause. Innumerable young people have married into it. Innumerable old people have died out of it. There are not 3 Jarndyces left upon the earth, perhaps, since old Tom Jarndyce in despair blew his brains out in Chancery Lane. But Jarndyce and Jarndyce still drags its weary length before the court, perennially hopeless. "Mr. Tangle," says the Lord High Chancellor, latterly something restless under the eloquence of that gentleman. "Blood," says Mr. Tangle. "Several members of the bar are still to be heard, I believe." 18 of Mr. Tangle's learned friends, each armed with a little summary of 1,800 sheets, bob up like 18 hammers in a pianoforte, make 18 bows, and drop into their 18 places of obscurity. "We will proceed with the hearing on Wednesday fortnight," says the Chancellor. The Chancellor rises. The bar rises. The man from Shropshire cries, "My lord!" Mace's bags and purses indignantly proclaim silence and frown at the man from Shropshire. "In reference," proceeds the Chancellor, still on Jarndyce and Jarndyce, "to the young girl and boy, the 2 young people whom I directed to be in attendance today and who are now in my private room, I will see them and satisfy myself as to the expediency of making the order for their residing with their uncle." Mr. Tangle on his feet again. "Beg lordship's pardon, dead." "With their grandfather." "Beg lordship's pardon, a victim of rash action. Brains." Suddenly, a very little counsel with a terrific bass voice arises and says, "Will your lordship allow me? I appear for him. He is a cousin several times removed. I am not at the moment prepared to inform the court in what exact remove. He is a cousin, but he is a cousin." Leaving this address ringing in the rafters of the roof, the very little counsel drops. Everybody looks for him. Nobody can see him. "I will speak with both the young people," says the Chancellor anew, "and satisfy myself on the subject of their residing with their cousin. I will mention the matter tomorrow morning when I take my seat." The man from Shropshire ventures another, "My lord," but the Chancellor, being aware of him, has dexterously vanished. The little old mad woman marches off with her documents. The empty court is locked up. If all the injustice it has committed and all the misery it has caused could only be locked up with it, then the whole burnt away in a great funeral pyre. Why, so much the better for other parties than the parties in Jarndyce and Jarndyce. My Lady Dedlock has returned to her house in town for a few days previous to her departure for Paris, where her ladyship intends to stay some weeks, after which her movements are uncertain. The fashionable intelligence says so, for the comforts of the Parisians, and it knows all fashionable things. To know things otherwise were to be unfashionable. My Lady Dedlock has been down at what she calls in familiar conversation her place in Lincolnshire. The waters are out in Lincolnshire. An arch of the bridge in the park has been sapped and sopped away. My Lady Dedlock, who is childless, looking out in the early twilight from her boudoir at a keeper's lodge, and seeing a child chased by a woman running out into the rain to meet the shining figure of a wrapped-up man coming through the gate, has been put quite out of temper. My Lady Dedlock says she has been bored to death. Therefore my Lady Dedlock has come away from the place in Lincolnshire, and has left it to the rain and the crows and the rabbits and the deer and the partridges and pheasants. Sir Leicester Dedlock is only a baronet, but there is no mightier baronet than he. His family is as old as the hills, and infinitely more respectable. He has a general opinion that the world might get on without hills, but would be done up without Dedlocks. He is an honourable, obstinate, truthful, high-spirited, intensely prejudiced, perfectly unreasonable man. Sir Leicester is 20 years, full measure, older than my lady. His gallantry to my lady, which has never changed since he courted her, is the one little touch of romantic fancy in him. Indeed, he married her for love. A whisper still goes about that she had not even family. Howbeit, Sir Leicester had so much family that perhaps he had enough and could dispense with any more. But she had beauty, pride, ambition, insolent resolve, and sense enough to portion out a legion of fine ladies. Wealth and station added to these soon floated her upward, and for years now my Lady Dedlock has been at the centre of the fashionable intelligence and at the top of the fashionable tree. She has beauty still, and if it be not in its heyday, it is not yet in its autumn. She has a fine face, originally of a character that would rather be called pretty than handsome, but improved into classicality by the acquired expression of her fashionable state. With all her perfections on her head, my Lady Dedlock has come up from her place in Lincolnshire, hotly pursued by the fashionable intelligence, to pass a few days at her house in town previous to her departure for Paris, where her ladyship intends to stay some weeks, after which her movements are uncertain. And at her house in town, upon this muddy, murky afternoon, presents himself an old-fashioned gentleman, attorney at law, who has the honour of acting as legal adviser of the Dedlocks. Across the hall and up the stairs, and along the passages and through the rooms, which are very brilliant in the season and very dismal out of it, the old gentleman is conducted by a Mercury in powder to my lady's presence. The old gentleman is rusty to look at, but is reputed to have made good thrift out of aristocratic marriage settlements and aristocratic wills, and to be very rich. He is surrounded by a mysterious halo of family confidences, of which he is known to be the silent depository. Mr. Tulkinghorn is of what is called the old school, a phrase generally meaning any school that seems never to have been young, and wears knee breeches tied with ribbons and gaiters or stockings. Sir Leicester Dedlock is with my lady, and is happy to see Mr. Tulkinghorn. "My lady's cause has come up again before the Chancellor, has it, Mr. Tulkinghorn?" says Sir Leicester, giving him his hand. "Yes, it has been on again today," Mr. Tulkinghorn replies, making one of his quiet bows to my lady, who is on a sofa near the fire, shading her face with a hand-screen. "It would be useless to ask," says my lady, "whether anything has been done." "Nothing that you would call anything has been done today?" "Nor ever will be," says my lady. "As a few fresh affidavits have been put upon the file, and as they're short, and as I see you're going to Paris, I have brought them in my pocket." Mr. Tulkinghorn takes out his papers, asks permission to place them on a golden talisman of a table at my lady's elbow, puts on his spectacles, and begins to read by the light of a shaded lamp. "In Chancery, between Jarndyce," my lady interrupts, requesting him to miss as many of the formal horrors as he can. Mr. Tulkinghorn glances over his spectacles and begins again lower down. My lady carelessly and scornfully abstracts her attention. It happens that the fire is hot where my lady sits, and that the hand-screen is more beautiful than useful, being priceless but small. My lady, changing her position, sees the papers on the table, looks at them nearer still, asks impulsively, "Who copied that?" Mr. Tulkinghorn